Welcome to the Flora and Order Time Chat. Michelle Gardiner joins me today. She's a storytelling coach, founder of the Aspire series, and creatress of 55 Faces. Michelle supports women to reclaim their stories and lead with purpose through a powerful blend of narrative work, coaching, and social change. Michelle's approach to time is deeply intuitive and resonates with me very much, shaped by cycles, softness, and the wisdom that comes with experience. Today, we're talking about what it means to be a woman at 40, how our energy shifts, and how listening to our own rhythm can guide how we work, lead, and live. So welcome, Michelle.
Thanks.
So good to have you here and coming in from America. Very cool. So let's start here, I guess. How far into your 40s are you, and how is this chapter going so far in terms of your relationship with productivity, rest, purpose, all the things?
Yeah, it's interesting. Technically, I am about 50 weeks into my 40s.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, I feel like there's like enough runs on the track that I can say I'm actually in my 40s now.
Yeah.
Almost graduated my first year of my 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think that's right. I think the build up to 40, so I turned 40 in June, and I say jokingly, I had my midlife crisis 38 to 39. I did it a bit early. And so approaching 40, I was ready. I felt really good. I felt like I'd kind of done a bit of the work around just the conditioning and everything around turning 40. And I had some lovely friends who'd gone before me who said, jump in, the water's warm, it's great over this side. Yeah.
It's interesting. I was reflecting on that the other day as well. I thought that I would feel ready for 40, and then when it came up, I was like, whoa, this is actually really big. And I've heard a lot of other women say as well that it's a really big experience. And it's something that when it actually came, I felt very, I wouldn't say unprepared. I felt like I wasn't anywhere near where I thought I would be. And I actually wanted to just literally put my head under the water for that week or so. And I didn't even want to celebrate it in the end. But yeah, it's a really big point. And I think maybe even more so as women. I was reading something the other day, and this wasn't where I was going to go at all, but I was reading something the other day that was talking about how age is celebrated for men as they get older, whereas for women it is frowned upon.
So
and true. I found that really interesting, really interesting. Men often come into their own from their 40s and beyond, whereas we kind of look at women and go, oh, she's starting to get wrinkles or whatever. Or in particular for women around 40, if you're not partnered, you don't have kids, blah, blah, blah. It assumes that you probably don't want that if you're not already enmeshed in it. But there's this really kind of interesting space, particularly something that I've navigated for the woman who does want kids, and the whole picture doesn't look the way that she thought it would, and then she's turning 40 as well. So I think there's that side of it. But then there's the other side of it as well, where I was prepared in terms of I'd had people say to me, your energy does shift at 40. And I was like, oh, yeah. But then when it actually happens, you're like, wait, hang on.
They were right.
10 years ago, I was an Energizer bunny, an absolute Energizer bunny. And all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I don't work, I can't work the same amount of hours, and I can't work at the same pace. And I mean, I possibly could, but I would feel absolutely exhausted if I did. And then it's like, well, okay, if it's not that, then what is it? And it's interesting. I've spoken to so many women who've burnt out in the past year, or the past year and a half. And I guess part of my journey with that has been okay, how do I do this whole thing in a way that is more honoring? And saying to you just before we jumped on that it feels like it's how do you use time to create more space? In space, you create more choices. And what does that look like? And how do you honor like where your energy levels are at in the ways that you work? I mean, there's still, there are some days where I get immersed and I can work for 16 hours straight, not even think about it. Like the day disappears and I've worked the whole day, and there are other days I might struggle to get 2 hours in. So it's like I think as entrepreneurs, we're lucky that in some ways we have more choice around those things and we can plan those things a lot better. But yeah, I guess I'm curious about how we navigate all of that in amongst a whole conversation that I don't know if it was ever that prominent before around, perimenopause and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Do you freeze your eggs? Do you do this? Like, like there's just so much dialogue as well.
Yeah.
This age.
It's so true. It's so true. And when you were saying about more choices, I kind of feel linking that to that Energizer Bunny reflection, because so much of my work is helping people be in the chapter that they're at. And for myself, looking back at my 20s, I was an absolute Energizer Bunny. I was also avoiding work that I didn't like being at. So I was creating a lot of life outside of the 9 to 5. But to look back at that time now, I'm like, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like, I like my early bedtimes and I like waking up early and I like my morning routine and things like that. But linking that to choices, I feel in the last 5 years, my personal challenge around FOMO has kind of changed. So rather than more choices now, I'm happy with not less choices, but like I'm leaning into JOMO, like the joy of missing out. And that's something that 20-year-old Christie, I don't think she would have anticipated. And then linking to what you were saying about, sexism, it is so much like, how much of that when I was in my 20s was I doing because I felt I should or I had to? Whereas now it's this kind of like 40s, I don't want to energy, and I don't have to, and peeling back all of that stuff, which I have found very exciting and which I was told to look out for, but anticipate, as you said, like so much to like, oh yeah, like it has changed. Things are changing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that I don't feel like, people jump onto these things to be an expert or whatever, but I don't feel like I'm an expert in it. I feel like I'm a learner. A learner both around my own self and my own body and what I need, which I guess, I've been navigating, but then also a learner from other people as well and how they navigate it. But I mean, something that's become really prominent for me, when I say really prominent, just a reminder, I think, over the last few weeks, has been just to really hone my energy back into my own body and a sense of, like you were saying, like, what is it actually that I need and how do I honor that in the most strong way possible? And I'm not really a person that talks hugely about self-love and all of that kind of stuff. Not that I don't believe in it. It's not what I've built my work around. But I think it's just been this real focus on like coming back to the core and coming back to, what is of the core most importance, but also how do you get to that point in the most streamlined way possible? Because there are so many, we're given like 500 million different routes, right? And it's like, what's actually essential? What's actually necessary? I know that there's this whole fan club around like getting up and starting work at 5 a.m., but I honestly couldn't think of anything worse. Like, that is not my jam. If you try to get me up at 5 a.m., I would be so cranky for the rest of the day. And is that of benefit to anyone?
Yeah, I used to be that person, and then moved in with my partner who, because of work hours, was getting up at 5. And then I was like, well, I'm staying in bed kind of half asleep till 6:30 and I'm getting up groggy. So I've, for those reasons, embraced the 5 a.m. and really love it. But for years I thought the same. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to hate it. But it's this time for me. But that, I think, is, I talk to night owls who are just living a completely different rhythm to what I would, feel comfortable doing, or even comes naturally to me. So it is interesting how it is. Yeah, you hate the 5 a.m. club, but I've become the 5 a.m. club.
Well, I guess that's another point as well, because I'm kind of all over the world a lot of the time too. And at the moment I have a call once a week that's at 5:30 in the morning. So technically I'm part of the 5 a.m. club one morning a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe that's a little bit different while I'm over here. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I like what you were saying about learning and everything, and that kind of links to what you do with storytelling. I suppose like storytelling is all of just like being non-judgmental and listening to what's coming your way. Did you want to talk a bit about that? Like, how does storytelling showing up differently now, or what the question is there? But
it's a really interesting question. The first thing that comes to mind is that to listen to another person's story, you have to be present. There's a lot of presence, and there's a lot of hearing, but also hearing the subtleties and then the underlying currents of that. The other things that maybe that other person hasn't picked up, and then being able to weave threads and join dots between different pieces of the threads that they might not have anticipated themselves. So in order to do that, you need to be able to be a clean and clear vessel. Yeah. And you need to be attuned to yourself, be attuned to your own rhythms. And I know we spoke a lot about intuition. You need to be intuition as well. There's one more thread that I'll stick in there as well that I often talk about. A few years ago, I had a Balinese priestess say to me that your spirit must always be bigger than the work that you want to do in the world. Like burnout happens when your work is bigger than your spirit. So, yeah, so I feel like that weaves back into the way that we take care of ourselves, which is about how we manage time, how we utilize time. And I wouldn't be one of these people to kind of go, here's like your best time management tool or anything like that. Because I'm very much like, where's my energy at? What do I need? I often start what excites me the most, regardless of whether it's the most important thing or not, because it's like I know the energy of that builds some momentum to get going. So I feel like those things, like when we're attuned to ourselves, we're then in a better position to attune to other people, right? And then to pick up those subtleties. But if we don't do that to ourselves first and attune to our own subtleties in those ways with whatever it is that we need, then how do we, are we in the best position to be able to do that with another person? So I feel like it connects back to storytelling in that way. And I think if you look at like the deeper undercurrent and purpose of storytelling is that it's all about humanity, and it's all about connecting to humanity. And storytelling has been a mechanism for it's been like one of the oldest forms of connection to humanity that have ever existed. Sharing circles have existed far beyond like the modern day women's circle. Like they've existed from like the beginning of time. So really, like that's about dropping into who we are as humans, what we're here for as humans, and how we connect to another human. And that begins with that capacity to drop into your own energetic rhythm, your own energetic system. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So many yeses to what you just said. Yeah. And even, what you said about doing what excites you most on that day, just because that's the energy, that's that tapping into what is my body saying, like what is going on, and then using that to use your time best. Like there's nothing worse than picking something up and you're like, I have to get this done but you're just pushing and pushing, and it's like 3 hours later you haven't done it. But then if you waited for like the next day, you know, and it's like, oh, the energy's here, and it takes half an hour. It's that real interplay of, yes, you need to get this done, but can we pick and choose what we're going to action in this moment due to our energy? I think that's, and yeah, what excites you. And that's a really good trigger, a really good like indication.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, did you have something on that?
I think more than anything, like, that is very much how I navigate what it is that I do. Yeah, and how I do things. Yeah, or even like if you look at a task that you don't want to do, you kind of go, okay, if there are a million different threads inside this task, like where can I start? Can I start somewhere? Yeah. Like, something that, even if it's kind of like a side thing, like, is there something that I can draw on as a side way in or something like that? And usually there is. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. No, that ties back to what you said about the story with weaving and the threads. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking about cycles and rhythms. When did you first start really using that in your life?
I feel like my time in Bali was incredibly powerful in respect to that. Not only was it the first time that I wasn't working a mainstream 9-to-5 job, so I had flexibility of how I utilized my time. Which one of the first things I learned actually was that I had to incorporate some Western time management stuff. Otherwise, I was like, okay, like, this really isn't working. But also there was a lot more space. And also I think being in that environment up in Ubud, where it's really encouraged that you work with your cycles and your rhythms. Like, it's such a common conversation. People be like, oh, you know, I'm on my moon, so I'm just not rocking up. And people go, okay, cool. Like, it's just completely understood. And that's not something that, you know, in so many environments in Australia or anywhere else in the world that you would go, oh, what, did they just say that? Whereas in Bali, like, that's just the way that things operate. It's very feminine in that aspect. So I think it was largely during my Bali time where I learned to integrate that in the most strong way. But then part of my journey in returning to the Western world has been like, okay, how do I take, you know, the way that the world operates in Bali, which in many ways is upside down compared to the Western world, then how do I return to the Western world and still hold enough of, I suppose you could say, the Eastern philosophies and ideas around working and living and operating, but then also draw back in some of this Western stuff. Like, I learned about SOPs for the first time and all of this kind of stuff. And I just went, oh.
You'll have to explain, what are SOPs?
Standard operating procedures.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So just learning about all of these things and going, okay, systems, structures, like, okay, like, all right, like, this is how business operates in the West. And then, you know, Bali is just kind of like, where's your energy and what do you feel like doing? So finding a way to integrate both of those things has been really interesting. And I suppose even just, you know, being a 40-year-old in Bali is very different to being a 40-year-old in Australia. Where in Bali, like, there's so much in Bali that you know, people care about in Australia that they don't care about in Bali. It just kind of drops off. The first thing that drops off is your watch. If that's any indicator, like, nobody wears a watch in Bali. Wow. So things like that. And I mean, you know, a coffee catch up in Bali would typically go for 3 hours. Like, you wouldn't imagine every coffee catch up you have in Australia going for 3 hours. But somehow business and life still happens around all of the things, right? So yeah, I guess being back in Australia, where it's like, firstly, there are a whole bunch of systems and operating things that exist, but also the way that the world operates, the way that time is seen and navigated has been really interesting as well. And then going, okay, how do I find both myself within this, but then how do I also create something that's maybe a bit of both and turn that into my way of existing? like, I guess one of my things is that as often as I can during the week, I love having an afternoon snooze. I'm not a sleep-arena person. I try to go to bed early when I can, but I'm not always great at it. But I love having an afternoon snooze. So, and it's not something I can do every day, but as often as I can, I love to. And, you know, I know that I then am in a much better space to work through the afternoon and the evening when I do that. So, to me, that's for the benefit of everybody, really. So it's like in Australia, like people don't typically have an afternoon siesta, but in that aspect, I'm like, maybe I'm meant to be in the Mediterranean, maybe more so than Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that is a lifestyle that I resonate with probably the most strongly, is the Mediterranean kind of lifestyle. So I don't know, I guess, like, how do we, rather than it being like, you know, one particular set of things around, you know, this is the best way to manage your time or the best way to manage your energy or whatever, maybe it's more of a, rather than it being, you know, an external set of expectations, I suppose, like, how is it that we define that for ourselves and look at, you know, all sorts of different models and going, what do I want to take from this? From Bali, I want to take the thing that, you know, when you have your period, you can have the first day or two off, or you can maybe not have it all off, but you can reduce down your workload as much as possible and just do what's most urgent or what feels like you can hold that the most, make those days the most spacious. And then at other points in the cycle, you might have the energy to go straight for 16 hours and not even think about it, or to network like crazy and go from one event to the next, to the next, to the next. And use that for a day of, like, a week of your cycle or whatever. But then, you know, it might be that, you know, from the Mediterranean, it's like, I want to take that whole philosophy of you have an afternoon snooze and then you're more active in the evening. And then you take the morning slower. So like, how can we take what works from different places, from different ways of existing, and turn them into something of our own, rather than it being something that's gifted to us, I suppose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally, completely. Yeah, because even for years I've been very aware of that. Spring, summer, I am a lot more, daylight works for me. Like, seeing sun works for me. It helps my work. So I've recognized that autumn and winter, I slow down, not going to output as much, and then that's okay, because it all kind of levels out. And then with our cycles, it's there's so much forgiveness and compassion when you tap into that and go, hey, I'm bleeding, like, I'm not going to get everything done, and I'm going to reschedule things, and I know that there's a time coming where I will have more energy and be able to do those things. There's just so much compassion in that, and to cobble that together for ourselves. And your stories about Bali reminds me of a trip to Fiji I took, and a friend and I wanted to go canoeing, and the guy said, 3:00, I'll meet you there. And then we were there like 3 on the dot, and we're like ready, keen as beans, you know, canoe. And it was like 3:15, he's still not there. 3:30, 3:45, and we're like, and then he rocks up, and we're like, why didn't you just say 3:45 if, like, you know, like, we've been here for 45 minutes. And it was just that real, like, we were talking to other Westerners, and they were like, oh yeah, Fiji time, like, compared to Australian time. And it's that funny, how do you make a meeting time with someone if no one's, you know, if you've got two different ideas about what time is. It's I find that fascinating, just time around the world, because my mum, even in the 70s, was a diplomat to Peru. And really cool time there. And she would go to a wedding, and they had like 2 p.m. English time. So that meant it's starting at 2:00. Whereas if it was 2:00 Lima time, then people knew, we can kind of rock up 2:15, 2:30, 2:45. And I thought that was quite an interesting way of, you know, presenting, like, no, we're actually starting at like a set time rather
Mm.
than, yes, we're going with the flow. So you're right. I think you're right. There's definitely things we can cherry pick from around the world and put that into our own days.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose it's been interesting as a facilitator as well. I mean, I used to work with young people that had an experience of child protection. So for them, it was very much, you know, if something's working, we would just stay on that activity and we would just fully engage them. Then if something wasn't working, we'd just go, yeah, screw that activity, let's move on. And so you'd have a schedule, but it would be extremely fluid. And it's been interesting working with female entrepreneurs, because it's like, okay, it's in some ways it's like a navigation of that, where, you know, everyone wants their set amount of time. And sometimes I'll have like teachers that come along to my summit in Bali, and I find teachers the most particular with time and things, how things are meant to be and how things are meant to be done. Whereas I still hold a fair amount of that fluidity, and especially being in Bali as well, where time is quite fluid. Yeah, that's an interesting navigation as well, in terms of, and also people are on holidays, so people tend to be a lot more relaxed in the environment that we're in as well. So it's like, hey, yeah, I guess it's something across the whole of life that has been like how do I have enough of the structure, and the routine and the planning and all of that kind of stuff, and also have enough fluidity and flow as well, and those two things together. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. Yeah, because I can see some of my clients, you know, Australian-based clients, they're in retirement now, and so they've had years and years of structure, and then if they've had kids, they've had that their children's structure of going to school and holidays and stuff, and now they're retired and they're like, I have no structure. What do I do? And so it's yeah, feeling into that chapter and maybe adopting a bit of that, you know, Balinese time, or, you know, that creating time for yourself and working, well, not working against that structure, but that conditioning of like 9 to 5 structure. It's fascinating how it comes in at the end.
You know how Instagram puts something on your like feed or whatever that's related to what you're thinking? There was a post that came up right before I jumped on here, and it was talking about how like some of the happiest people are the ones that have the least amount of commitments. And it's like, it's not because they don't care about anything in life or they're not invested in anything in life. It's just that they've kind of like scanned the whole of life and gone, what's actually essential? And so essentially they spend a lot more time sitting on their deck drinking tea. And I thought about that because I picked up the teacup. Sitting on the deck drinking tea and staring into space, because they're kind of like, okay, I'll do what's essential, but I'm not like over investing myself in anything. I'm just creating more space for myself. And I think there's something in that. And I think that's something that we learn to understand or appreciate more as we get older. It's like, what's actually essential? What's actually required of my energy? And if it's not, then do I actually want to do it?
Yeah, Jomo. Yeah, because so much like getting, I mean, linking back to our 40s just before we finish, like so much. I just look around, I'm like, you know, nails, eyelashes, hair dye, all of these things that we were told as young women that you had to do. And I see younger women doing that, and I'm like, you're spending time, money, energy, like all of these things that you know, I forget the feminist writer who said it, but like, how do you keep a people small? Well, you keep them distracted, keep them poor, and you keep them hungry. So that's why the whole diet fascination. You know, if we're hungry, then you don't have the energy and the strength to combat against all that. And I think, turning 40, I feel a lot of that stuff bubbling up, a lot of that freedom of just looking around and going, hang on, I've been sold a bit of stuff and I don't think I want it.
That's oh gosh, that's a whole kettle of fish in itself. I find that really interesting. Like I very rarely do any of those appointments because the way that I see it is that I actually hate sitting down in any kind of salon. I actually really unenjoy, like I really actively don't enjoy it, and I don't enjoy shopping, and I don't enjoy like any of that stuff. And so I'm like, why would I add extra appointments to my diary or my calendar? Why would I want that? Why would I want to have to go to the hairdresser every 6 weeks? Like I can't fathom why you would want to do that. And I know that like that is so much of so many women's that's a part of their life. And it makes me think of Claire Bowditch has these song lyrics that I absolutely love, and she talks about, I'm going to bring them up. And it's part of the song that's called Your Own Kind of Girl.
Ooh.
It's really relevant to what you were saying. Yeah. Hang on, let me get the song lyrics. I actually think you would enjoy the song.
Yeah, I will definitely look it up. I will listen to it in its entirety.
Yeah, maybe tag her. She might love when you share this. Yep, here you go. So, the whole song lyrics are just are so prevalent to what we were just saying. My hope for you, my darling girl, be brave and build a dream in your own size, because otherwise you're buying crap that you don't need to feed a world that will not feed you. It will not feed you, my love.
Oh,
that's so true, right?
So true. So true. My
yes.
God. Wow.
Yes, I'd rather be hanging out, daydreaming and visioning and creating and being in this alternate reality of what we want humanity to be than hanging out in a shopping center with fluorescent lights somewhere, filling in time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's a better note to end on. I think that's a very powerful task for people to go listen to that song. I'm definitely going to do that.
Yes, Your Own Kind of Girl by Claire Bowditch.
Yeah, Your Own Kind of Girl. Great. Love it. And so, yeah, to close, what's coming up for you? What's on the horizon? What are you most excited about?
What am I most excited about? I am most excited. I'm actually excited for, this is probably a side note, but I'm most excited for Melbourne summer. I think this can be a really amazing Melbourne summer. I've just started feeling into that. I'm most excited for the summit next year that I run in Bali once a year. I'm really excited about. Talking about, fine-tuning what we do and all of that kind of stuff. Part of the 55 series that I have been facilitating, I've decided this year to close that off. So I've completed 4 books, published 4 books, which have had like 225 women across the world involved in them. And I've decided to add 1 extra book and then to finalize it. But I'm not rushing myself to do that book either. That will come when it's ready. But I've sidestepped and started working with a small group of women to write their own book. That's been incredibly powerful and beautiful, and I'm enjoying diving deeply with just a small group of women. So I'm excited for when they get to publish their books. And I've also been working on my master's as well for a long time. So I'm excited to invest the time and the energy over the next couple of months in getting that finished and it out and having more space on the other side of that. So yeah, there are things, and a couple of adventures over here in the US as well. I'm excited about.
Yes, I will follow your Instagram with keenness. It's very exciting. Oh, thank you so much for coming on to the Time Chat. And thank you very much.
My total pleasure. Thank you for having me.